Hey, this is Susan Blanton, and this is the Create Happy Now podcast. And today I have on my show Rebecca Morrison. Rebecca was a happily married mom and lawyer with a 2-decade career in big law and finance. She felt something was missing, however. That feeling led her on a quest to figure out whether it was possible to be both successful and happy. Now a happiness coach and author of The Happiness Recipe, a powerful guide to living what matters, Rebecca helps successful but unsatisfied high achievers find their happiness recipe so that they can live happier, lead happier, and build happy businesses. Rebecca is a graduate of Wellesley College and Georgetown Law. She is also a UC Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute certified executive coach. Welcome to the Create Happy Now podcast, dedicated to helping you start your journey to discover true happiness. Join me, your host, Susan Blanton, weekly as we explore the transformation stories and words of wisdom from our masters of happiness with tips you can start applying today to create happy now. Well, Becky, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so thrilled to have you here. And I wanted to see if you could start out the day by just kind of telling people where you pivoted. I mean, here you were, this lawyer in a successful practice, and all of a sudden you were just like, I want to be a happiness coach.
Well, I mean, not surprisingly, that wasn't an all of a sudden sort of thing, but I can tell you where the story starts for sure. And so, you know, I did what a lot of us do. I got the good grades, went to the good school, got the degree, got the job, and found myself, you know, as an associate at a big law firm on partnership track. I had a husband and a young daughter at the time, and I found myself one evening on the floor of the bathroom, and it wasn't anything dramatic, you know, it wasn't like in crisis, but I found myself on the floor of the bathroom with a cordless phone clipped to the back of my pants and my toddler daughter in the bathtub, and the toilet seat cover closed and the notebook on the toilet seat cover and the papers all around me. And I was doing two things. I was bathing my toddler, getting her ready for bed, because my husband had a job where he had a crisis. He was in counterterrorism and something blew up somewhere in the world and he had been called into work. And I was also on the phone with our experts for an upcoming trial, getting them ready for their depositions. And I had kind of two thoughts in quick succession in that moment. I was like, who says you can't do it all? Like, here I am, I'm a mom, I'm successful at my job, I'm doing good work, I'm killing it. And then I had the next thought, which was, I'm kind of tired, might be even a little exhausted. And more than that, I'm not really sure, although I'm good at this, I'm capable of this, I'm not really sure that it's making me happy. And I would love to say that like that was all it took, was that bathroom moment. But that's not how I'm wired. I'm a little thicker headed than that, a little more stubborn than that. So I started sort of this inquiry of like, what is it that is important in my life? What is it that really matters? What is it that I want to be doing that would make me happy? But I didn't make any big moves until I had a life-threatening ectopic pregnancy and realized that life is so short and that things can change on a dime. And that was the wake-up call to really get serious about building a life, including my work, that allowed me to have what I called success and to enjoy it. And so from there, it's not like I jumped right into happiness coach. I then had a several decade career still in big law and finance after that, but where I made some non-traditional choices to really prioritize the things that were most important to me. Fast forward probably 15 years from that bathroom moment to 2018, and I found myself, not actually, but for all practical purposes, getting laid off. And I had another moment where I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. Like, yeah, I can go and do the things and check the boxes and do the job I'm capable of. And there's a lot of jobs I'm capable of at that point, because I've now been a lawyer, I've been a manager of people, I've been a process person, I've been in legal technology. But what do I want to do? What's going to really fuel my next chapter, my next season of my life, be a fit for my now, you know, growing up family? And I landed on coaching. And that's how I got there. And then started with the idea of, people and process have been at the heart of what I have done for decades. So I think coaching is a natural fit. I really liked the people part. I like enabling the success of others. And then I got my coaching certification in March of 2020. And we don't need a reminder as to what happened in the world in March of 2020.
Yeah.
But it really was a pivotal moment, both for the world and for me, to really dial into what is my real value? What are the lessons I've really learned in my life, and what issues and topics really drive me? And that's where I landed on happiness.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that a lot of people have a moment like you did in the bathroom, and it doesn't really matter how long it takes you. I mean, it may have taken you because it could have been your beliefs. It could have been, well, maybe I can do both. Maybe, but you were more mindful of me. You weren't like sitting there going, I need to quit my job at that moment. You're just like, I want both. I wanted my cake and eat it too.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to figure out what cake I want to eat. I mean, that was part of it, was really getting clear on, like, I had all these boxes that I was checking, and I'd never really up until that point thought about, okay, like I grew up thinking this is the path, but is it the path I want? Are these the box? Is this the checklist? Like I get to choose the checklist. Is this the checklist I want to choose?
Right. Yeah, I think that we're brought up with roles that we are expected to play, and we don't even question it. Okay. I mean, you've got to be the good student. You've got to be the college graduate. You're going to go be a wife and a mother and a successful career, and, be a woman that does all these roles and hold down a career. And then, well, but where are you? You're just a role player. You're a role player. Well, what role do you want to play? I want to play me.
Yeah.
I don't even know who I am. I mean, that's where I was. I had checked every single box. I was good at checking boxes, like we were talking about earlier. Someone tells me, here's the plan, here's your playbook. Okay, I'll go do that. But then I'm like, okay, is this the playbook for happiness? Because I just assumed so.
Right. And I think that's the story we're sold, right? Is that happiness is the side effect of checking all these boxes. And then a lot of us wake up one day, and I mean, maybe not one day, but wake up to the idea over time even that, oh, wait a minute, checking these boxes isn't getting me the happiness I thought it was going to get me. Sure, it might be giving me the title I wanted, or the salary I wanted, or the house that I now can buy, or the car that I can now drive, but it's not giving me the satisfaction, engagement, and enjoyment that I thought I was going to get. So
you might get it temporarily, but you're doing it for the wrong why. And I was like, well, what was I doing it for? And ultimately it was to please my parents, that I was the rule follower. I they say get an A in school, get an A in school. And oh my gosh, I would be mortified if I didn't get an A in school. And then, oh, you need to get into college right away. Okay. You need to find a man. Okay. Where's the grandchildren? Okay. And, you just jump through these hoops. What was that jumping? Thought I was jumping through them for myself, but I was only jumping through them for myself so that I would be the daughter that my parents could be proud of.
Absolutely.
And then at one point, when I was in my 40s, I was like, okay, I don't care if my parents are proud of me at this point. And I did everything. So now what?
Yep. Well, and I've got an added layer to that. So I grew up in a household. My mom was a in-house attorney for a very large company. My dad was a pastor, and I was the only child. And my mom came home probably somewhere middle school age I was. So like 12, 13, right? And she had gone through a leadership development program at work. And one of the things that she had been tasked with doing as part of that is developing her list of values and priorities, and then communicating those to her family. And so she sat down with us at dinner one night and said, we need to have a talk. And I need to express to you that my career and work is my top priority. And I tell people that, and they make a face like you just made, and they think, well, how did that, were you hurt? And I was like, absolutely not. I wasn't hurt. I knew that my mom loved me. There was no question about being loved or claimed, but it felt so good to have her say out loud what she was living. Mm-hmm. Instead of telling me you're first and treating me like second.
Yeah.
Right.
At least you knew where you stood.
I knew where I stood, and it never meant that I was unsupported. So, I mean, my dad's career had a lot of flexibility in it. What that meant is he picked up the job of primary parent, and he was the one who came first initially when I needed something. And of course, I'm confident that if, something drastic had happened, her priorities would have shifted. But in a world where I was healthy and thriving, fine, she was going to choose work. Mm-hmm. No problem. Let's name it. Let's claim it.
Yeah.
But now fast forward to that woman sitting on the bathroom floor. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, what if I don't want my work to be my top priority? I have to tell my mom that. Mm-hmm. My mom is somebody who, she went to law school at a time where there weren't women in the law. She paved the way. She made it possible for me to have this job. And I have to go tell her that it's not actually the most important thing to me. Yeah. And that was terrifying, that thought. Now, perhaps if you're, thinking this through objectively, you won't be surprised by the outcome. But I called her and her answer was, awesome. You've figured out what's most important to you.
Oh, that's good.
And that's what it's really about. But we lose sight of the fact that fundamentally, we're not going to disappoint most people who truly care about us by expressing what it is that really matters to us and pursuing that. In fact, the people around us want to be able to support us in doing that, but they can't do that if we aren't speaking it and then matching our words to our actions.
Right. I mean, your mom was being very authentic. She was telling you what she wanted, where things stood, and you were taken care of. It's not like luckily your dad was more of the caretaker and had the flexibility. I think maybe it would be different if both of your parents were like that. Maybe you don't know, but she knew what she wanted, what she loved, what her passion was, and she was going after it. And that, and her knowing that and being that, because I think she probably, because she was paving the way, you have to be pretty passionate about something to go through what you have to go through to get there.
100%. And I guess I would say, so I said I didn't feel unloved. I also didn't feel unimportant. Like we have room in our lives for lots of things to be important. A priority just means when we have to choose between A and B, we're going to choose the top priority. Yeah. Right. So it wasn't that she didn't engage with my life or didn't engage as a mother or wasn't present for me. And our relationship is awesome still today. It was just that she was just saying out loud what she'd already been living. Cool. Right. Now I know.
But maybe what she chose as a profession wasn't necessarily, you weren't as passionate as she was. No. And that's okay.
Yes.
And that's okay. And I think for us, many people in our generation, we're discovering what we chose to be a profession back in the day when we were kind of like, okay, you're 16. What are you going to be for the rest of your life? And then you think you're stuck with it. And at one point you're just like, I don't want to be this anymore.
Yep. And at the time that I left the legal world, about 4 years prior to starting coaching, and I went to work in finance. And at the time that I did that, that was another important pivot point, because I was exactly on that precipice of, if I stay here, I'm going to become an authority and an expert in this thing that I'm doing. And I don't like it. I'm not that interested in it. It's in my zone of capability and maybe even in my zone of excellence, but it is not in my zone of genius. It is not something that I feel attached to, that I derive meaning from, that I'm really jazzed about, that I wake up excited to do. Yeah. And so, like, either I have to leave or recognize that I'm going to be swimming in this pool that isn't my favorite pool for the rest of my career.
And
potentially
swimming upstream too.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And the thing is when you're doing that, when you are swimming upstream, when you're doing something against your grain,
yep,
it can cause health issues.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you are just hating it and just you think you're not playing the role that you're meant to play, then you're kidding yourself. I mean, I just watched an interview of Jim Carrey the other day, and he said, I played many roles, and I also played Jim Carrey. You know, and he said, I thought that was me, but that was not me. That was just who I thought I wanted people to think I was.
Yeah.
And then when he figured out who he really was, and he stopped playing Jim Carrey, you know. And I think that's the thing, is that a lot of people are waking up to, well, who are they really? And they're making these choices to examine, well, I mean, it's kind of hard to just go, okay, well, what do I want? Because I haven't really had the choice of what I wanted for so long. And when you have a menu that's as long as it is wide to choose from, it is kind of hard to go, oh, what's next then? So I really envy those who have found their passions early in life, or maybe all of a sudden they go, you know what, this is what I want to do now. But when you're kind of like, I don't like what I'm doing, but I don't know what I want to do, that's tougher.
I even think that there's a lot of people who are sitting in the place just north of that, meaning it's not even that they don't like what they're doing. They're actually decent at it. It's pretty comfortable. They're having some success with it, but it's not fueling them. Like their soul isn't lit up by it. And it's almost this thought of like, am I being greedy to want more?
Oh yeah. And we've all been taught, don't be greedy, don't be selfish. But self-love and examining your life and yourself is not selfish.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly, but I think that programming is loud. And especially if it's, like I said, a little bit north of that. And it's like, well, but I have the job. I can do my job. I'm doing it well. People are telling me I'm doing it well. I'm getting the paycheck. I'm feeling secure, right? How dare I demand that I actually feel engaged? That I actually feel connected.
It's going against our logic. And everybody else that we assume is going to scream logic at us when we go to them and say, you know, I've been thinking, but maybe I don't want to do that anymore. And they're going, what are you talking about? You're successful. You got this going, that going, and you just want to throw that all away. I'm like, well, I'm not necessarily throwing it away, but maybe I'll be even as successful or more successful doing what I love.
Well, and this goes to the bigger question, and I think you and I have talked about this, not in this conversation, but before, is like, ultimately it comes down to, how do you want to define success for yourself? Right. Is success this checklist that the world has told us? Is it the title, the job, you know, the car, the house, the paycheck, or is success something else? And how do you figure that out for yourself? Because when you talk about making that shift and being successful or even more successful, I mean, I think you can have all of those things, and you can have the engagement and the satisfaction. And, you know, I want to be careful how I talk about it too, because I don't think you have to find, like, the thing I struggled with is this notion of like finding my calling or finding my purpose. And I don't think it's about having one answer to that. I also don't believe that there's one soulmate for us, right? Like there's not a soulmate career or a soulmate person. There's situations in which we find ourselves, and some of them are more engaging than others. And sometimes we have to sort of seek out the ways to engage, and that's okay too. But it's like, you deserve a life where you are engaged in it. How are you going to create that?
Yeah. And you can try several things. I mean, I was watching this content creator on YouTube that was she's like, I was just all over the place. I was talking about this. I was talking about that. I was talking about this. And I just end up realizing this one thing that I really loved to do. And I had a content piece on it. That's what did the most.
The best. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she was like, well, it just makes sense. You know, I mean, I want to do what I love, and everybody loves what I love to do. It shows. And so that's where she went. And then that's, you know, and a lot of people say that do what you love and everything else will fall into place.
And I think it's about being able to recognize that do what you love could be a big thing, big concept, or it could be find what you love in the space you're in, find what you love in the work you're doing, find what you love in the moment you're in, to sort of pull you up that ladder so that the whole thing is something that you love. Does that make sense? Like,
oh, it makes total sense. It makes
total like we don't have it's like, you know, you talk about like on the emotional scale, right? Like you might be feeling sadness, and you're not going to go from sadness to joy. You have to make some stops along the way.
Right.
So you're not going to go from disconnected from meaning to perfectly meaningful situation all around without making some pit stops on the way. And that's cool. It's just one big experiment. That's all it is.
So true. I mean, I remember I had a job several years ago where my commute was like an hour and a half.
Yep.
And so I just made this hour and a half like my hour and a half. And I found that, you know, I played a game on how I could get there. Like I knew which lanes were the right lanes, and see, you know, see how fast I could get, you know, and I had a place, a coffee shop that I went to every time. And I always had the same thing. And I would drive up and they would go, hi, Susan. And you want the same? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And I just really made the trip, and I listened to things that I really loved to listen to that was filling my soul during that time. And, you know, when I started doing that, I noticed that people would let me in traffic. Like,
isn't that interesting? Yeah.
I would not have like any problems with people on the road. I mean, it just got easier and flowed. And then as far as the job, I really wanted to work from home. And I didn't feel like it was gonna work there, but I just made the best of it. You know, when I was there, I tried different hours, and they let me change my hours to see what worked. And then as I was just trying to appreciate and make the best of my current situation, I got a call out of the blue for a job where I could work from home.
Yeah, you did. I mean, that's the perfect example, right? Of like, how is it that we can climb this ladder, kind of creating opportunity for ourselves. And I mean, there's some energetics to it for sure. And then there's some simple science to it, right? Because the science tells us that when we have positive emotional experiences, and that's what you described, like the hello at the coffee shop, the people being not in your way, the listening to things that feed your soul, there are some things that happen like psychologically and physiologically that allow us to see more possibility. Like just in the simplest terms, when you have a positive emotional experience, your peripheral vision increases. Like you literally see the world better. And so not just that, but like your ability to problem solve and to see possibility and to see novel and creative solutions increases. And so
what you're really saying is that you're able to tap into your intuition, which is your higher wisdom.
Absolutely.
It's leading you where you really want to go.
Yes. And so how can you show up in every day with a little bit more of that without ignoring? I mean, so I did an hour and a half commute each way. It was probably just over an hour for 10 years, maybe a little longer. And were there days where I was miserable? Yes. Some days it took me 2.5 hours one way. I didn't pretend like it didn't stink those days. That's the other piece. Like I didn't ignore the challenge. Like I didn't try to gloss over the challenge, but wherever I could, I tried to make it a positive experience, kind of like you're describing. And I think when we can do that, we begin to see and experience more possibility, more connection with that higher self, that intuition, and really cool stuff happens.
It's enjoying the detour, you know. And that's one thing that was a paradigm shift for me, is to enjoy the detour.
Yep.
When something comes up and you're like, oh, well, you're not going to be able to go where you wanted to go right away. You got to go over here.
Yep.
We just had where we moved to Florida for a year. I don't really want to move to Florida.
Yep.
My family was, in Georgia, and there's things that I wanted. We wanted to live on the lake, and we wanted to have this house.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna be moving to Florida. Well, that's not what I had planned. That's not what I really wanted, but we went. And then we just it just only lasted a year, and now we're back in Georgia, living in the house we dreamed of. And so I'm like, okay, that detour was actually necessary for us,
for the destination.
Yeah. So don't curse the detour.
Well, so here's something I just heard recently from a really wise person that I know, and it hit home. If you're looking at something in front of you, like a long commute, for example, if there is no solution to it, it is not a problem. It is a fact. So you can stop trying to solve it. And you got a couple of choices with facts. You can accept them. You can attempt to change them. Or you can grieve them. Sometimes we need to grieve them before we accept them. And that's cool.
Yeah.
But the shift in mindset, going from, I'm sitting at the airport, there's a delay, that's not a problem. I can't solve the delay. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. What am I going to do with this set of facts? How do I want to show up to this set of facts? And I can control that, but I cannot control that. And there is so much in our lives that we, the broader we, treat as a problem, and it's a fact.
There's something that I had learned back when I was growing up. I was just, it has to be this way. It has to be this way, And when I had two situations that could play out, and I didn't know which one was going to happen, and it was kind of out of my control, but I knew I was going to have to live with either one. I mean, that happens sometimes with us. I just decided that, okay, I'm going to play out this scenario, and I'm going to come to terms with it. If it ends up that way, okay,
acceptance.
That's how it's going to be. Okay. And it can go out this scenario, play it all the way to the end, and go, okay, I don't like it, but I can live with it, Done. Then you're not worrying and just, oh, well, what if, and you're just trying, let it go, because what I found is the most benevolent outcome. Sometimes even another one that I didn't even know was an option comes out of nowhere, and that's where I end up going. But I wouldn't have noticed the path to that most benevolent outcome if I hadn't just let go.
Yes. And I think here's the thing. So we have a evolutionary predisposition to look for the negative, right? I mean, just for safety reasons. I have a lawyerly predisposition to look for the negative. I've literally been trained to assess all of the things that could go wrong and try to prevent against them. So what that means in my life is that I have a real propensity for borrowing trouble, for planning out a negative outcome that has not yet arrived. And my mom used to say it to me all the time. She'd be like, Becky, stop borrowing trouble. And I didn't really appreciate it until I got a little older and a little wiser. And I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, like, let's think about it like if we had a balance sheet, right? Like I've just spent 15 minutes of energy towards a negative, like an outcome that hasn't arrived yet, that doesn't even feel good. That money, like time, money, currency that I want to spend
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I can't stop my natural propensity to spend those 15 minutes, you know what I can do? Spend 15 more minutes borrowing joy. I can actually choose to think about, what would it feel like if it all worked out? Maybe I don't even know the how, but what would it feel like at the end if it was a good solution? And again, it creates that thing you're talking about, that opportunity for the benevolent outcome to arrive, because we've like engaged in this natural thing that we need to do, which is think about the negative because we want to stay alive. Fine. Can't shut it down, can't ignore it, don't want to stuff it. I'll allow it, but I'm going to balance it out.
And there's also an attraction factor. There's the law of attraction. And some people say, oh, well, things always happen to me. These patterns keep coming back. And it's probably your reaction, your thought process, your anticipation, your expectations. It's just a revolving door. And, the universe is like, oh, that's what you want. Okay, here's some more. Oh, that's what you want. Okay, that's what you keep talking about. That's what you keep thinking about. That's what you keep complaining about. Okay, that's what I'm going to give you. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. It's just constant worry and stress and talk about and complain. And, that's what's got, trust me, been there, done that. And then when I stopped complaining, and I started seeing what was going right, what would be great if this, and dream about this, and even people, just thinking about what would they be like if they were more this way or more that way. And then I started seeing them more this way and that way. And I would encourage that expectation. And it just ended up where my relationships got even better because of that. It's
because your brain doesn't care whether you're imagining it, visualizing it, or actually experiencing it. The experience in the chemistry of your brain is the exact same thing. The other thing that's really interesting that has been impactful to me is a recognition that your brain can't think in negatives. So let me explain. If I tell you right now not to think about a pink elephant, don't think about a pink, whatever you do, no pink elephants. What are you doing? You're thinking about a pink elephant.
I'm thinking about my hometown because there's a pink elephant sitting right.
There you go. So think about that with what you're just talking about. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, this has been a hard month. Like nothing can go wrong. No flat tire, no more bills, no blah, blah, blah. No. What are you actually thinking about? You're actually thinking about all of those things you don't want. And so one of the most powerful shifts for me has been to think about, and we do it even to ourselves when we set goals. Like we'll be like, I'm not going to snack. Well, first of all, that's a silly goal, but putting aside, I mean, but like, well, how do you shift?
Snack. I want a snack.
So how do you shift the goal to something that's stated in the positive? So the positive for that example might be, I'm going to eat really nourishing meals so that I'm not hungry between them. Okay. I can think about that. I can focus on that. I can act towards that. And again, I don't know why I picked snacking and meals. That's a weird example, but the point is this idea of like, I even talk about it with my son who plays basketball. I'm like, you go to the free throw line and you think, don't miss. What you're really thinking is miss. You need to be thinking make.
It's like, I hope it doesn't rain today. No, reframe. And that's the thing is that when you start saying things like, I hope it doesn't rain today, or I hope the traffic isn't bad today. Stop, just reframe and go, it would be really great if it's a sunny day today.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing the sun today.
Yeah. I would love to see the sunshine today. If it's cloudy and maybe it's overcast, you say, oh, maybe there might be a little, bit of the sun peeking through. Instead of, I hope it doesn't rain. Right. I just washed my car.
Yeah.
No. Look at and even if it does rain, oh well. Sure. It's got to rain. The grass.
Well, rain matter. Rain's important.
Rain. Yeah. Unless you're up to here with the rain.
Yes. Well, yeah. But I mean,
please.
But it is.
Yeah.
It is part of the cycle, right? So.
Yeah. But it's just like the guy who he's on the roof of his house and he's waiting around for his prayer, and he's like, nobody's coming to God's not coming to help me, and people keep coming by saying, hey, do you need a ride? No, that's okay. Hey, here's a ride over here, want to come with us? No, that's okay. Like, God, you didn't save me. Yeah, well, I sent you like 3 boats, but
12
you
rides,
didn't go. Because he wasn't open to seeing that was
the way forward,
the way through.
Yeah, I think the other piece that we do sometimes that's related is we get confronted with a change in circumstance and we make a decision right away about whether it's a good or a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I missed my plane. Oh, that's terrible. Well, is it terrible? What if the plane has an issue? Then it's not so terrible, right? What if it means that you meet the love of your life waiting in the airport? Not so terrible, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we as humans don't have the capacity to see how it's going to turn out. So the things that happen to us, the circumstances we face in most every iteration, they might be painful, they might be uncomfortable, they might be sad, they might be scary. I'm not trying to gloss over the feelings that go with them.
Yeah.
But they are neither bad nor good. They just are.
Right. Right. I mean, sometimes you just have to accept this is what's going on right now, you know?
Like you said, okay, we're moving to Florida.
Yeah. We'll just make the best of it. And what was crazy is that, and this is kind of like a little side story, but this is at the time we couldn't find, the housing market was through the roof and people are scrambling for whatever they could find. And as we were looking for what we were trying to look for, we just kept running out of options. Mm-hmm. And we end up having to be on a list for a house. And we're like, well, I don't know. I guess, this is the last house that was available. We have our name 5th in line. It's probably not going to happen. We'll probably have to live in a hotel for a while. And so we just kind of like, we did all we could. And then we just kind of like, oh, well. And then out of the blue, I got a call and someone, a friend of mine of a friend who knew I was moving down there said, hey, I know somebody that's selling her house. Are you still interested? Come to find out, it was exactly what we needed. It was exact right house. Even had like blackout blinds because we have a projector, which was perfect for that. We had a little dog door, which dog. And it was on the water. It was like
couldn't have checked more boxes. Back to the box checking. Yeah.
We went past the check boxes and went on to some extras. And I just felt very blessed, even though I was away from everybody and I didn't want to move there. But while we were there, I had the kids come down. We had some amazing trips, so that's what it was. But I knew it wasn't going to be a long-term thing.
Sure.
Sure. But you just have to just kind of, where are you and how can you enjoy it right now?
Yeah. Well, and I think you talked about an important shift there too, that you made in that process. And you talked about it too, when, you've brought up this feeling to me a couple times, and it's the difference. I like to think about it as the difference between closed fist and open palm energy, right? So like, am I grasping and like pushing and trying to make it happen, or am I open to receiving the solution? And whenever we can shift out of that pushing and create the space for the solution to arrive, it is almost always better than what we thought we were trying to create.
Oh, so true. It's so true. And I've seen that happen to me more and more because when you're in business and you're doing sales, and when I was trying to, I was working on commission, so I was really grasping at trying to get a deal to go through. And anytime I tried too hard, it didn't happen.
Yep.
And when I did everything I could, not in a desperate way, but I laid the foundation that, there's nothing more I could do. Yep. And I let it go.
Yep.
And when I let it go, I went on to, focus on something else.
Yep.
Here I get a call. Hey, by the way, I'm sorry. You haven't heard from me because this, that, I thought they ghosted me. And so yeah. And this has happened over and over and over. So I was like, I guess it's the letting go. I mean, it's even like, I notice when I'm in the grocery and I'm looking for something and I can't find it. I can't find it. And finally, like, I just give up and I say, ask, the grocer, hey, I'm trying to find this. And so they're like, it's right here. Right in
You're like,
front
yeah,
of
and I
me.
couldn't see it because I was so
Right.
yeah. And I mean, I've practiced with it a lot because I've had the same experience that you described. And I mean, not at the grocery, but like all of it. And I can feel a difference in my body. Like I can feel when the tightness is there. And that is a sign to me to like sit back, like to release a little bit.
Yeah.
And give some space and give some time. And like, I'll do it, like I lost my wedding ring the other day and I was like, I mean,
yeah,
it's like a backup ring. It's not even the real thing. It's fine. But I was like, darn, like I've had that since the beginning. Like I really would hope it shows up. And I frantically looked for it. And then I was like, you know what? It's coming back. And it took a week and a half. And then it was in a pocket and I found it. But I just didn't try. Like I just didn't grab at it. I just made space. And so I think there's a lot of, and I could have spent that whole week and a half continuing to tear apart my house. And I probably still would have found it. Mm-hmm. But like with a deficit of energy, right? Because I want to spend all that energy trying to find this thing. So
right. And I think sometimes people keep trying a little bit more because they feel like it's just right at
it's
the
like
end
right
of their
there.
grasp.
Yeah.
They're straight there. It's just, if I just worked a little harder, little harder. If I just do this one more thing. No. That's just let it go. Let it go.
When you feel like it's right there, just at the end of your grasp, it's a sign to open the door. It's on the other side of the door. Open the door. Mm-hmm. Don't try to push your way through the wall. Open the door.
Right. And don't focus on the problem. Don't
just like open the door and let it like, and then walk away and let the person, deal, wedding ring, whatever, grocery product, walk through the door.
Yeah. And it's just so funny how sometimes it works so well that it's a little creepy.
Yeah. It's fun though.
Right? It's just like, just as I just like, oh yeah, there you are.
There you
calling
are.
Me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Becky, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show today. And I'm really happy that we got a chance to meet. And so I want to give you the opportunity to share what you've got going and what you might be able to offer the listeners. But before we do that, you want to share your favorite quote?
So I struggled with this one because there's so many good quotes in the world, but I picked a quote from Mahatma Gandhi that ties back to that story that I told you about my life and about my mom. And the quote is this. It is really simple. Action expresses priorities. If you're ever in doubt about what you're prioritizing, look at how you're spending your time, energy, and resources. And that's going to tell you what you're putting first. And it's going to give you an opportunity to evaluate whether that's what you want to be putting first.
Yeah. How much time of your day, your life, add it all up, if you did that every day, and then add it up like an average of 80 years or whatever, how many years you've got left, I guess.
Yes.
Because you probably weren't doing it up till this point all the time. But this point out, if you've got another 40, 30, 50 years left, and that's what you're doing every day, that could be a significant amount of time that you're putting towards something that's
not actually
shifted
meaningful.
to something else. Yeah. It's not making you happy. It's not, if it's, just getting engrossed in YouTube or
guilty. Absolutely. Yeah.
Or YouTube, instead of going outside and making a garden or going for a walk with your dog or, playing with your children, just sit and go, should I be doing this? Like,
yeah,
what do I want to be spending my valuable time? Because time is valuable. We only have so much of it on this earth.
Yep.
What are we doing with it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are we serving others? Are we serving ourselves? Are we serving our family? but especially ourselves, because we do have to serve ourselves. Because without serving ourselves, then we aren't effective enough to serve others, our family,
all
our
the
community.
other populations we want to serve. Absolutely.
Right. And so what is your happy hack?
So my happy hack is something that I call I called it make a joy menu. And so it's really just about identifying what I call your essential sources of joy. And the exercise to get there goes something like this. And it's quick. Take a piece of paper and some sort of writing implement, or you could do it in your notes on your phone or computer, whatever. And I want you to write down, call it 5 to 10 things that make you happy. No parameters. Write down whatever comes up. And then I want you to pick 1 or 2 of those things. And I want you to ask yourself, I want you to dig a little deeper. And I want you to ask yourself, what about that thing makes me happy? So a lot of times, I'll give a quick example. A lot of times people say vacation makes me happy. Cool. What is it about vacation that makes you happy? And just as I asked that question, I'm sure you can already imagine there's a million different possible answers depending on the day and depending on the person.
Oh, yeah.
But the goal is to ask yourself that, what about this makes me happy or brings me joy or contentment? It doesn't just have to be happiness. Mm-hmm. Enough times to where you get it down to its essence. And by that, I mean, again, going back to that vacation example, I did this with a client, and what they landed on is that their beach vacations make them happy because they're in nature. Well, guess what? You do not need to go on vacation to be in nature. So the goal is to get it down to the essential thing that you can have on a list, so that when you need more positive experience in any given moment, in any given day, you have a list you can choose from. It's kind of like essential oil. You can just drop it into your life right then and there because it's accessible to you. So that is one of my favorite happiness hacks.
That's another thing that a lot of times people say, well, I'll be happy if, mm-hmm. I'll be happy when. And I am a big planner of, I want to get this and put this in place. And even if I want somebody else to enjoy it, mm-hmm. And then I get it done and I'm like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love planning things and dreaming about things. I mean, I think that gives me so much joy. And then when I get it, I am still like wanting to plan something else, like, okay, I have it now. So now what?
Well, how much fun, that's a great example. Like, how much fun could you have on a Tuesday afternoon, taking 20 minutes to dream about the next thing, or even dream mm-hmm. about the thing that you don't know when you're going to do it, but like the dreamiest thing you could plan? Like, what would that look like? What would what would those 20, 15, 5 minutes feel like for you? So that's a great example.
Yeah. So tell us about what you've got going right now, and what do you have for the listeners today?
So first of all, I have a book, as you mentioned. It's called The Happiness Recipe, A Powerful Guide to Living What Matters. And it's a coaching guide that guides you through sort of taking a look at the way your life is now and moving it towards a happier, more priority aligned life. It is a coaching book. It has got questions and activities for every single chapter. And there is a free workbook that is available for download as a companion to that, for those of you that like to have that paper resource with questions.
I love to fill in the blanks.
Yes. And you can find the book and the workbook on my website, which is an easy one to remember. It is untanglehappiness.com.
Right here. Okay.
Yeah.
Untangle Happiness. I love that. All right. Well, thank you again, Becky. I'm so glad that you're here. I had a blast talking to you, and I always love to talk to people who are a proponent of spreading happiness and teaching other people how to get closer and closer to it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Create Happy Now podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, and if you are watching on YouTube, hit that notification bell. If you have a topic to suggest, please leave a comment below. Catch the Create Happy Now podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Audible, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Listen Notes, and Podchaser. Check out other YouTube videos on the Create Happy Now YouTube channel. And if you want more, check down below for resources, courses, and events, or go to www.createhappynow.com.